Hi everybody and welcome to my Hell Let Loose complete beginner's guide. But before I start, I have to say you must be playing this game if you're on PlayStation 5, if you're on Xbox Series S, if you're on Xbox Series X, if you're on PC. You need to buy this game. It's a budget price. You need to download it and you need to put the time in to learn it and play it, because this is an absolutely amazing experience once you get used to it. And that's what a lot of this guide is all about, because it's for players who have just started playing Hell Let Loose, but I guess it could also be for veterans who maybe have been away and need a little bit of a refresher. Now, I'm approaching this as a console player, but all of the info applies to PC too. There's going to be timestamp links in the description below the video, so you can find the parts you want to see that are most useful to you. And if there's anything I don't cover in this video that you've got questions about, please put them in the comments section. And also, if you've got helpful tips as well for people, please put them there too. Hell Let Loose is a game like no other. It's incredibly immersive. It's like you're playing in Saving Private Ryan. It has amazing Battlefield moments, better than Battlefield itself. And, you know, there's something really special about when you're playing in one of the forest levels in the snow, and you're on the American side, and an American tank goes past, and then you're on comms with your squad, and some of them have got like thick Texan accents, or maybe they've got like a Brooklyn accent. And hey, I'm not saying you're there, but it's pretty good. The maps, gosh, these maps that are recreated from satellite imagery and photos from, you know, the day in World War II. You know, this is as close to World War II as you're going to get in a video game. And it's amazing that this game, this military simulator, has come to console, because we just don't get that sort of game on consoles. I'm seriously of the opinion that Hell Let Loose could be one of the greatest video games ever made. However, Hell Let Loose definitely has some very serious shortcomings that will frustrate you when you first start playing the game. And some of these issues will continue to frustrate you as you carry on going forward. So I want to cover them now, so you're forewarned, so you kind of know what to expect. You've probably come across some already if you've already dived in, and they won't stop you from playing the game or uninstalling the game. First off, Hell Let Loose can seem to be a really boring running and dying simulator when you first start playing it. Now, you'll spawn in, you'll spend 5 minutes running to the front, you'll get shot by someone, you won't know where they were, and then you start all again. And this is really frustrating. But what's going to happen is you're going to learn how to pick the right squad and the right squad mate, so this won't be a problem. You'll end up spawning in the thick of the action with bullets flying around you, and you'll know and kind of understand a little bit about where potential enemies will be and how to get them first. Also, when you first start, you won't have a clue what you should be doing. You know, what soldier role should you be picking? How can you make a difference in the battle? And again, I'm going to show you how to do that. You may well get to the end of games and think, well, wait a minute, I've been playing for over an hour here, and I've only got 5 kills, and I've died 20 times. But I'm going to discuss how, you know, that doesn't really matter. We've talked already about how these maps are based on real world locations. I'm going to show you how to move around and take advantage of those features on those maps to keep you in cover and keep you alive. You'll struggle with seeing enemies, but I'm going to show you how to slow down and spot them and listen to them, and then hopefully again you'll see them first and maybe even kill them first too. Now, you're going to see a lot of time looking at this screen, but don't give up. Watch the rest of this tutorial. You're mostly going to learn by really just playing the game over and over and again and talking to your squad mates. There's loads of other videos out there as well, and eventually you'll get to the point where you really enjoy the game, not just at those exciting parts when you're in contact with the enemy or you've made a good flank or something like that, but with everything else that's going on, because you kind of be understanding what's happening and how you are helping to win this particular battle. So let's kind of get started. What is Hell Let Loose? Well, it's a World War II first-person shooter game with 2 main game modes at the moment. You've got Warfare, which is like Conquest in Battlefield, where you've got to capture strong points, and the front line between the 2 armies kind of moves back and forth across the map. And you normally there'll be an enemy strong point that you can attack and a friendly one that you've got to defend. And the games end when you get to one end of the map and you've captured all of the enemy strong points, or the timer runs out. Then you have offensive, where as attackers you've got to capture a strong point, and then the strong point moves forward to another one, and as defenders you've got to defend it, and as attackers to win you've got to capture all of the strong points. As defenders you've got to hang on to one, I think it's for about half an hour. I think you've got to hang on to it to actually win. And games, both game modes, they can last up to an hour and a half, but don't let that put you off, because I know lots of us, we just simply can't commit to that much time to gaming. But many games, they end up being much shorter, and as I've said, I like to think of Hell Let Loose more of an interactive experience than a competitive shooter. It's not about how many kills you get, or it's not about winning the match, it's about being immersed in an amazing World War II military simulator. And if you've only got half an hour to play, jump in, enjoy that half an hour, then carry on with the real world. Don't miss out on Hell Let Loose just because at the moment they have these really long game modes and you can't commit to a 90-minute game. At the time of recording this video, I think there's 9 maps in the console version of Hell Let Loose, and there's a couple of more in the PC version, because the PC has the Eastern Front, and we should be getting that on console fairly soon. As I said, it's really important to bear in mind that these maps are based on real world locations using satellite imagery and photographs from the era. These are not finely crafted gameplay maps like you'll find in Battlefield or Call of Duty. In these maps, there's loads of really frustrating choke points. There's wide open death trap fields. There's uncrossable rivers and canals. And there's flanking routes that can take an awful long time to utilise. But when you start to get used to the maps, this all adds to the amazing immersion. And what I'll do is I'll put a link in the description below this video to another amazing video, not by me, which compares the Hell Let Loose maps directly with the real places from Google Earth. And I think one of the comments below that video says, this should be the introduction to Hell Let Loose. And I completely agree, because it kind of, when you see that and you see that these are metre for metre, foot to foot, very close recreations of the real places that soldiers were fighting over in the Second World War, it just takes your breath away and makes you want to play. Hell Let Loose is a 50 versus 50 squad-based game with, per team, one commander who does actually play and run around on the battlefield, but whose job is to give orders to the officers, to the squad leaders. He can also spawn in tanks, transport vehicles, he can send in strafing runs, he can send in bombing runs, he can order recon missions, he can send in supply drops, he can create airhead spawns. And he needs the squad leaders, the officers, to get their squads to build resource nodes so that he can have the resources to do that. It's quite an interesting aspect to Hell Let Loose that you probably will come across later on in the game. But in order to have more bombing runs going in and more tanks, for example, you need to have more artillery nodes, and you need to have more fuel nodes and resource nodes in general. Now, the commander's job is pretty stressful and should only really be attempted when you're a little bit more experienced with the game, so I'll cover that in a separate video. Next, you've got officers, or the squad leaders. Now, their job is to talk to the commander and carry out his orders, and also to report back on the situation on the battlefield. Squad leaders, officers, they've got to talk to the squad, tell them what the plan is, and build outposts for their squad to spawn in at. That's very, very important, so the squad can spawn in close to the action or close to the objective that squad's got to do. If the officer gets the help of a supply soldier, they can build garrisons, which the whole of their team can spawn in at. The officer has some binoculars, which means that they can spot enemies from quite a distance away and they can mark them up. And they should really kind of be thinking tactically about how that they can get their squad into position to carry out the orders that the commander wants them to do, or to achieve, local objectives such as, capturing a strong point or defending a strong point, or how to flank an enemy, or how to destroy some enemy armor, some fortifications or supply nodes. And I'll be discussing a little bit about how you can play as an officer later on, because you can dive into it pretty early, and good officers can be in short supply. Now, individual squad soldiers. This is how you're going to start off in Hell Let Loose. They can have a variety of roles, and we're going to go into those in a little bit more detail further on in the video. But their job is really to listen to and talk to the officer, find out what the mission is, and then help to achieve that mission. And sometimes that might include actually changing your role within the squad. So maybe you were playing as a rifleman, and the officer might say, look, I need a supply guy, or I need an engineer, or I need an anti-tank guy, or I need a medic, so you can redeploy as that particular role and help your squad. When you're starting off, I think it's definitely best to stick to being a normal squad soldier. But then again, as you get a bit more familiar with the game, and as you kind of get to know the maps a little bit more, don't be scared to spawn in as an officer, to create a squad or to take the officer's role in a squad that's already been spawned in, because officers who can play the objective and play the objectives that the commander is giving to them, they can be in quite short supply, and it will really improve your fun in the game. Because one of the great things about being an officer is, again, as with lots of things in Hell Let Loose, it's not about the amount of kills you get, it's about the other stuff you do. So it's about building the outpost so your squad can spawn in close to the action. It's about using your binoculars to mark up enemies. It's about working with your supply guy to build a garrison. It's all those other things that are really good fun, apart from just shooting and trying to kill the enemies. Now, this is an incredible little document that I highly recommend that everybody downloads, and if you can, print it out like I have, and you can kind of sellotape it together or staple it together or glue it together to give you a really good beginner's guide to Hell Let Loose. It's totally free. I'll put a link in the description below the video, and there's a PC version, there's a PlayStation version, and there's an Xbox version, and it covers many of the things that we talk about in this video and extra stuff as well, and it makes a really good reference. So if you're thinking, wait a minute, we're playing warfare now, what are the rules, how do we capture the strong points in it, this will tell you, what different weapons do the different soldiers have, this will tell you. It's a really funny, it's really good read as well. It's got some great little cartoons in, and it's fantastic. It harkens back to the days whenever you bought a game, there would always be a manual, wouldn't there, tucked inside the box, where now often we have to rely on other people's YouTube videos, like this, or perhaps tool tips and hints and tips when we're actually in the game. And a good old paper manual is sorely missing. So download this one if you can, print it out, staple it together, or stick it together somehow. You'll probably do a better job than I have, and use this as your beginner's guide reference. Right, so we're actually in the game now, and I just want to go through some of my settings in terms of my control, my sensitivity settings, that sort of stuff, that may well give you a little bit of a head start. So if we go down to the options, and then we look at gameplay, manual bolt cycling off. If you've got this on, turn it off. So what this means is that when you're using a bolt action rifle, if you have it as on, not only do you have to fire your gun by pressing your trigger, you have to reload it as well, which is a bit of a bummer. Show hints, yes. Maximum nameplate distance. You can start to turn this down if you want a kind of a more immersive game, because you do end up with lots of dots on lots of coloured icons on the screen. But the advantage of that is that, funnily enough, it enables you to spot enemies easier, because there is friendly fire in Hell Let Loose. And so when you see someone in the distance running along a hedgerow, you want to know if they're an enemy, because you won't be close enough to actually be able to see their uniform, to see their helmet, to see whether they're friendly or an enemy. What else have we got? Hide markers with HUD, yes. Display marker, duration maximum, HUD display mode always on. I always have that on. Reset hints, reset, show command messages, yes. Right, controls. Lean toggle on. So this is a personal preference, and you'll have to decide what works for you. So to lean in Hell Let Loose, and remember we're concentrating on console here, so I'm talking about Xbox and PlayStation. When you're playing on mouse and keyboard, it's a bit different. But I have the toggle on, so I click in my right or my left stick, and my soldier, when I'm aiming down sights, will then lean over. And then I have to click it again to stop leaning. Now, the reason why I do this is quite a lot of the time in Hell Let Loose, you'll be controlling an angle on the side of a building or a hedge, and you're kind of looking for the enemy. And so you want to stay leaned or leant over for quite a while sometimes. And if you've got to hold in your left or your right stick and try and aim at the same time, it kind of puts quite a lot of strain on your thumbs. So by having it as a toggle, I find it works better for me. ADS toggle off. This is kind of a PC setting really. So the idea with this is if when you hit your left trigger, if you have the toggle on, you'll aim down sight and you'll stay aim down sights. Well, that's not very common in console on shooters, so we don't do that. Sprint toggle on. So again, if you click in the left stick, the idea is you carry on sprinting. You don't need to keep it held in. Vibration, I turn it off. I mean, you could argue for a more immersive experience, turn it on. Aim assist I've got on medium. You'll have to see for yourself with this. I know I've played an awful lot of this game with aim assist off, and you can you still do all right. I play PUBG with aim assist off, but see what you think. If you find your aim being dragged around too much by people you can't see, then maybe turn it off. Now, sensitivities, these are very personal to you, and the thing I would say is if you try a particular setting in this game or any other game, stay with it for a long time. Don't try and keep changing your settings because you think they're not quite right. Once you've decided on something, stay with it for several hours or a few days. So you can really get used to it and build those muscle memories. So I have my x-axis is up at 60%, so this is when I'm aiming left and right. Because I think actually the sensitivity overall in Hell Let Loose is quite low, and this enables me when I'm walking along to be able to turn left and right really fast, well, relatively fast. My y-axis, so up and down, is a little bit lower because a lot of the time you're dealing with things on a flat plane in Hell Let Loose. You don't need to be looking up and down that much, so I want that to be less. Now, controller sensitivity when aiming down sights, again, 40% on X, so left and right, and a little bit lower, 30% on Y. Acceleration, I've got 60% for both. I've experimented with no acceleration, so acceleration means that the further you move the stick, the faster you move. Now, normally in most first-person shooters, I turn that completely off. I like a very linear response curve, but the acceleration, they're not that much in Hell Let Loose, so I've kind of stuck with that and I've got used to it. Map cursor sensitivity 50%. You've got to play around with this again because this is a PC game. When you do go into the map, the cursor can move around a little bit fast or a bit slow. You've got to find out what works for you. Movement dead zone. Actually, let me turn that down. So I normally run with 20% and 20%. So this is how much your sticks can move around before your character will start looking in a different direction. Again, I have it at 2020. If your sticks are wearing out a bit and have a tendency to drift, you might want to put that higher. Works for me. Invert first person, I'm one of those people, so I have that on. Video brightness 100%. I turn the motion blur off. You could argue the game looks better if you turn it on, but the problem with motion blur is that often it can hide enemies because the world is blurred. And in Hell Let Loose, it's so difficult to see enemies that you want every single advantage. Controller, I use layout A for infantry, and as we're really just talking about infantry in this video, I won't talk about anything else. Audio, master 100, music 70%, effects 100%, and I've got my voice down 50%, 80, UI volume 80, ping marker 80, microphone volume 50. You may well have to adjust your microphone volume and the voice volume depending on your setup and also how loud the other people are in your squad. So yeah, sometimes you might be playing as an officer and the commander's a bit too quiet, so you need to turn him up, or he's a bit too loud, so you need to turn him down. So there we go. That is my settings. So let's dive into the selection screen and have a look about how you may want to think about who you choose to play as, who you choose to play with, and where you should choose to spawn. Hi everybody, so here we are in the spawn screen for Hell Let Loose. So let's talk about how you choose which squad to join, and we're going to cover sort of roles as well you may want to join as, and then we'll dive in and do some basic movement as well. So let's have a look down. So this is a nice full game. So you kind of want to choose a full squad if you can, an almost full squad. So let's have a look in how squad. Let's see what's going in. So we press A on Xbox or X on Xbox to go in, and we can see this squad doesn't have an officer. Now that is bad, okay, because you need an officer to be able to put down outposts so that you can spawn in closer to the action. Otherwise you spend an awful lot of time running around. So let's come out of there. We don't want to go into house squad. So let's have a look at item squad. Let's go in there. Now they don't have an officer, so we don't want to go in there. And let's go in king squad. Now king squad do have an officer, so that's a really good start. And I'm just going to choose. I'm just going to be a choose to be a. See what's left. An assault. Could be a machine gunner. So let's just select the machine gunner just for now, just so I kind of reserve that slot so nobody else takes it. So the good thing is we've got an officer, which means that hopefully they'll start talking on comms, and hopefully they'll start putting down outposts so that we can spawn in close to the action. So which role should we choose? Now this squad has got a really good cross section of different roles. They've got a support, really important. They've got an engineer and they've got a medic, very, very important. The role that I would always choose, if nobody else had chose it yet, is the support player. Now the support player is very important because you bring supplies onto the battlefield, and so you can talk to your officer and you say, where do you want me? So you spawn in. You go to your officer, and your officer by himself can only make outposts which allow you and your squad mates to spawn there. With you there, you can put down supplies, which enables him to then build a garrison, and your whole team can spawn a garrison, so you can move your whole team forward. So very, very important indeed. Also, as a support, you can work in conjunction with the engineer to give him supplies so he can build supply nodes, or he can build anti-tank guns, or he can build defensive emplacements, all that sort of stuff. And as you level up your support player, you can spawn in with ammunition boxes and small explosive boxes. So a really, really important role to use. I mean, you do get a fun gun. So with the Americans, I think you get the M1 Garand. The Germans, you get a Kar 98, which isn't so good. But when you level up the support on the German side, you can get the MP35 submachine gun, which is really cool, and you get the option of, I think, the grease gun as an American, or the Tommy gun, can't remember which one you get, which I'm not sure about that. I think the M1 Garand semi-auto rifle is really powerful, and I would probably stick with that. So if I couldn't take the support role, the next role I would probably take is medic. Medic, very important again, because what you can do with the medic is you can follow your officer around, and if he dies, if he gets knocked, you can revive him. You've got a smoke grenade that you can throw down so that you can create cover, and you can revive all of your squad mates. And if you're in the thick of the action with lots of your other teammates, you can revive those too as well. So very important. And then the other role I may well go into is I may well go in as an anti-tank as well. So there you've got the bazooka. However, what I would probably say is, after spawning in as a support or a medic, say they're taken and you spawn in as an anti-tank or an engineer or even a rifleman or an automatic rifleman, ask your officer what he needs. Do you need an anti-tank? Do you need an engineer? And often what will be happening is he'll be getting orders from the commander that you won't hear. And in the commander mode, I'll say, right, we've got an enemy tank at these coordinates. I need HAL squad to go and take him out. So he may also look, can you spawn in back in as an anti-tank person? And that's what you can then do. So you can then redeploy. You get a bit of a time penalty, but then you redeploy as an anti-tank person, and you go and take out that anti-tank. Or he may say, listen, the commander has told us we need to build supply nodes. I need you to spawn back in as an engineer, and then you work with the support guy to build supply nodes so that he can start getting the stuff he needs for throwing in more bombing runs or supply runs and all that sort of stuff. So very, very important. So once you've done that, so we've chosen to be our support guy, so we just confirm that. And now we can choose... let's go back and do that again. Oh, somebody else has taken it, great. Let's just pick something. Let's just pick machine gunner then. So now we can look on the map. And the potential spawn points are listed on the right-hand side of the screen. So you've got your HQ spawn points, which ones are on the far left. And then We've got our garrison spawn points. So these are the ones that have been built by other squad other officers, maybe R1. But importantly, there is a outpost spawn right, he's in the thick of it. Not quite in the thick of the action. It's the triangle with the cross on top. That is a really good sign. So that means our officer is building outposts. Very, very, very important to do. So it means we can spawn in closer to the action, and importantly, closer to the objective that officer wants us to achieve. Whether that might be defending, attacking, taking out armor, that kind of thing. So if this officer is also talking as well, wow, that would be the perfect thing. So if you go into a squad, and the officer is putting down outpost spawns but isn't talking, at least you've got outpost spawns. If you're going into a squad and the officer isn't putting down outpost spawns but is talking, then encourage them to put down outpost spawns, and hopefully they'll do it. If they're not doing either, so they're not talking and they're not putting down outpost spawns, change squads, honestly, because it's just not worth it. You'll spend too much time running around. So now if we look at the map, we can see, because we're playing offensive mode here, you can see that there's only one. Are we playing opposite? Actually, no, we're playing offensive, because there's only one objective. There's only one strong point. That's right in the middle of the map, and so we're on the defense. So what we need to do is really think about either getting onto that objective, or it could be the commander has talked to our officers and say, look, that objective is about to fall back to this other one and set up defensive positions there. But we can choose to spawn right on in the action. So we could choose to spawn at that garrison spawn or that outpost spawn. Now, right, we've spawned in. Now, I haven't actually spawned in close to where my teammates are, because I want to talk about next about kind of some of the basic movements and moving around the map, and sort of how you select different things within your soldier. Now, I'm the guy with the with the LMG, which is really cool. So if I go prone by pressing and holding B on Xbox or circle, I can then deploy my weapon, and then I can really lay down some serious gunfire to suppress the enemy. So that's kind of my role. Most of the controls are very much like a first-person shooter. So you press and hold B on Xbox, or press and hold circle on PlayStation to hit the deck. We've talked already about. In fact, I don't know can I lean? Yeah, I can lean as an LMG. Yeah. There we go. We can crouch run. We can jump. If you press and hold the top right shoulder button, the one that's above the right trigger on PlayStation or Xbox, you'll then get a wheel which enables you to select your different things. Now, because I'm the guy with the LMG, I don't really get to choose much else. But for example, if you're a support player, you would see your supply box up here. You may well see your hammer as well. If you're an officer, you'd see things like your binoculars and your grenades. If you're a medic, you'd see your syringe and that sort of thing. So that's a quick way of changing. The other way to change stuff is to press up and down on your D-pad. You can see I'm changing between my bandage and my knife, and then you hit Y on Xbox or triangle on PlayStation to move back to your main weapon. Now, if we aim down sights and press the left part of our D-pad, we will mark where enemies are. Now, as an ordinary soldier, you're really just saying, look, danger. There's enemies there. So whenever you see enemies, you want to be marking them up. So you can do that way. And next, we really want to talk about comms. Comms are incredibly important. Now, comms are controlled on your left shoulder pad, the button above the left trigger. And as you can see, as an ordinary soldier, we've got two options, and we go up and down with our right stick. We can choose proximity chat, which allows us just to talk to people near us, so that includes other people from different squads. Or if we go down to unit radio, we can talk to our squad members all over the map. And if you look on the left-hand side, you'll see that those little three lightning things. So they're green, which means we're on the unit radio. And if we go up, we're now on the proximity radio. Very important. If you're an officer, you also get the option of command chat as well. We get to chat to the commander and your fellow officers. Right, so let's move over here and let's just go next to this area here. Now, if you bring up the map with the button with the two little squares next to it on Xbox, or I think it's the options button on PlayStation, here we go. We can see the map, and you can zoom in. You're going up and down on your D-pad, and then if you click in your right stick, you'll get the key come up. Now, we've just lost that particular objective, that particular strong point, so now we have to defend this one here, and this area, this circle, this is where we need to be inside or near to make sure that we can defend it. But it's very similar to Battlefield, so the more soldiers you have on the point, you'll keep it. If there's more enemies, you'll lose it. And then you can see we've got various, so there's an ammo depot, there's a repair station for tanks, and you'll see the little green marks of your squad mates and the blue marks of your teammates. Now if we scroll in as well, all these little markers, they all mean stuff. So here you can see we've got roads, we've got walls, we've got buildings, and these are very, very important, especially on the more open maps where there's lots of flooded areas and canals and open fields. You can really work out what your flanking area should be as you're moving around the map. So get used to that. And then on the screen, if you look at the bottom, you'll see you've got your cursor, you've got your compass, sorry. So that helps you to figure out which way you should be going, because it's very easy to get lost. Now, as you're moving around, really you want to always be thinking that there could be enemies anywhere, because there's nothing stopping anybody in Hell Let Loose, enemies from, say, coming right down here on the south of the map, then pushing up through our home spawns and attacking us from behind. As long as they don't mind spending the time doing it, they can do that. So there could always be enemies anywhere in Hell Let Loose. So you want to be moving, sort of crouch moving, and you always want to be moving along cover and away from long sight lines. So for example, running along this road here, not a good idea, because someone could be set up down there. So I want to be crouched down and then moving along near walls in shadows, and just making sure that I'm minimising my silhouette and I'm ready with my gun kind of pointing where enemies could possibly be. We'd normally call this centering in something like Call of Duty or Battlefield. Now remember, your soldier cannot swim. You can jump across small little areas of water, and if you're lucky you'll hit the edge and you can climb out, but if you go into deep water you will just drown. So here we go. So as we're going, say we're moving across this area, you want to move from tree to tree, cover to cover, and thinking about where the enemies be. So the enemies will be doing just what you're doing. So you always want to be looking kind of at the edges of things. So if you were over there where these trees are, where would you be? Well, I'll tell you where you'd be. You'd be lying down, peeking around the edge of a tree trunk. So that's where you want to be looking. And what you want to be doing in Hell Let Loose is you want to be listening out for for footsteps, and looking that direction and see if you can see a friendly marker. If you can't, it's going to be an enemy. And you want to be stopping so that the screen kind of sorts itself out and becomes very clear, and just look for movement. Look for those little signs of, say, a helmet moving along. Or you'll see a leg sticking out of a tree that's moving as they're repositioning themselves. And you'll see enemies, but don't move yourself. Because if you don't move, chances are they won't see you. Because in Hell Let Loose, the only people who have telescopic scopes with guns are the snipers, and there's only 2 of those on each side. And then you have the officers with their binoculars. But they've got to tell people where you are. They can't fix that binocular to their submachine gun. So always think about that. And always stop, listen, wait, have a really good look at the screen, and you'll be amazed at how many people you will see just by stopping and then looking at the screen, and you'll see them move, and then you can take action. Now, if you're out in the open, and yes, someone does start shooting at you, by all means start sprinting and start wiggling, but it's nowhere near as effective in Hell Let Loose as it is in other games. If you do see enemies, what you want to do is aim down sight and hit left on your D-pad, and you can put a marker. So look, there's enemies there. That's where danger is, and obviously you would tell them as well. And really, that's kind of the basics of moving around. You want to move around to where your squad is, get on comms, make sure you're chatting to your officer and your fellow squad mates, find out what the plan is, and then acting accordingly. Okay, so let's say you're in a situation where your squad leader isn't talking and they're not on comms. So you may well want to take over the officer role. So what I want to do is I'm just going to create a squad now, create a locked infantry unit, and we are going to spawn in, and I can kind of show you some basics about an officer. You'll notice straight away that the officer, we've got an LMG. Let me run away from the enemies. So straight away what you'd want to do is you want to get on comms, and you can see I've got commander chat, I've got proximity chat, and I've got my unit radio. So you would turn your unit radio on so you can start talking to people. And if you press and hold your right shoulder button, you'll see the other gadgets that we now have access to. So we've got a grenade, we've got a smoke grenade, we've got a bandage, we've got our watch, and we've got our binoculars. Binoculars, very, very useful. So we can look through binoculars, and when we press and hold left on our D-pad, what we can now do is there's a whole selection of things we can tag. So we can say there's enemy infantry, there's enemy supply vehicles, there's an enemy tank, enemy outpost, enemy garrisons. We can request things off the commander, call in artillery, call in smoke, etc. We can say, look, defend this position, observe here. We can call in bombers on this sort of stuff. We can't actually call them in. We're just saying to our commander, this is where we want them, please. Please, please, please put them in here. So that's very, very powerful indeed. And then, remember, you can go up and down on your D-pad as well to select stuff. If we get our watch out, we can now build. So this is the important thing. So you want to be looking at the map, and you want to be moving close to where the objective will be that the commander's given you, or if they haven't given you anything, to the objective, and you want to be building outposts as you go along, because they disappear as you build them, so that your squad can then spawn on those outposts to get closer to the enemy. One little tip actually that I missed out from earlier was, if you can't see your marker on the map for some reason, always zoom out and then just come out of the map and go back into it, and it pulses for a second like that. And you'll see it pulse, which is very, very useful indeed. So let's say I was close to the objective. I select my watch and I press and hold the left trigger, and you can go up and down to the type of thing you can build. If you've got supplies, you can build a garrison, but we were interested in outposts. So let's see if we can build an outpost. You can't build them in everywhere. Let's get out of here. There we go. So now we can build an outpost. So that's very important. So now my squad, if I had anybody in my squad, would be able to spawn in closer to the action. If enemy soldiers get close to your outpost, it will just disappear. It gets destroyed. Garrisons, they need to take some action to destroy it with like a hammer, or blow it up with a satchel charge or something like that. So as you're always moving towards the action, there's a cooldown on your ability to create outposts, but you want to be, as an officer, you want to be creating them. So that you can then build them close to the action, so your soldiers can then get in on the action too. And if that's all you do, that is very important, and it will be very, very good indeed. There we go. Right, okay, let's start to round things up. And I guess one of the things I didn't really discuss previously was tactics. And your tactics as an ordinary soldier, as you're following the instructions of your squad leader, should follow what your squad leader's doing. Just make sure you keep your head down, that sort of thing. When you become a squad leader, though, and you're designating tactics, what you want to be doing is, unless you're directly told to do a direct attack on a strong point, on an objective, you should always be thinking about flanking. You should never approach a objective head on. This goes for strong points, and it definitely goes for things like armour as well. You know, if you're trying to get your squad to take on a tank, you want to be attacking it from the side or from the back, never head on. So if you want to get somewhere in the map, you end up doing knight's moves. If you think of the move a knight does on the chessboard, where you kind of go across and then back, you know, in an L shape, you should always be sort of doing that. So if it was a north-south map, you would move to say to the west, you would move up the western flank and then move in towards your objective. You're always flanking, always trying to get behind your objective, because generally your enemies will always be looking towards your spawns, thinking you're going to be coming that way. And also bear that in mind when you're defending objectives. But this sort of thing will come as you play the game more, and you follow the more experienced players around. So now, how do you level up your soldier and customize your weapons loadout? So if we go into the barracks, what you'll see is that my character is currently level 22, but each individual type of soldier has their own level as well. And as you play the game, as you do kills, as you build things, as you destroy things, that sort of stuff, you'll level up more. And if we take the support character, for example, which I play the support soldier an awful lot, and we press X on Xbox, or that would be square on PlayStation, you can see that if we go to the right hand side, we've got our options on our loadout, and the support guy at the moment has a choice of two. We have the M1 Garand, where we get the grenade, the bandage, the supply box, the hammer and the knife, or we can switch to the grease gun, and we get the supply box, ammo box, small explosive box, hammer, knife, and bandage. So so you can customize that. And then if we go over to the German, and we look at that, so the German can have the Kar 98, or we can upgrade to the superior. The superior, I think it's the MP35, is it? The submachine gun. That is much better than the Kar 98. Obviously not at range, but for general use, as you're wandering around the battlefield, it's better. Whereas with the Americans, I think you can't really beat the semi-automatic Garand. I think that is very, very good indeed. And then if we press the top right shoulder button above the right trigger, we can then customize our appearance. The great thing about Hell Let Loose is you don't have that many different choices. They're keeping it very World War II. There's not that much different things to do, but there is stuff to look forward to as you kind of can give your soldiers, that different look to make them a little bit different on the battlefield, but they'll still be recognizable as Germans, as Americans, or Russians when we get the Eastern Front in the console game. So there we go, that's it really. We've covered a lot of ground in this video. Hopefully you found it useful. What I'll do as well is I'll put a link to the Hell Let Loose Discord in the description below the video. A very useful place to squad up with other players, so you can have squads of like-minded players who are talking, which is really, really important. And there's lots of information there as well. And obviously do all your YouTube search for Hell Let Loose tutorials, Hell Let Loose map guide, Hell Let Loose weapons guide, all that sort of stuff, Hell Let Loose tactics, and you'll find lots of really good content out there to help you sort of get past that learning curve. But the beauty with a game like Hell Let Loose, and I think in its way it's very similar to games like PUBG, very similar to games like DayZ as well, you're always learning new things. The maps are so big, there's so much going on in terms of tactics and strategies that there's always something new you're learning. And my biggest tip would be always join the right type of squad. Always join a squad with an officer who's talking and they're laying down outposts so that you can stay in the action, doing what the commander wants, and you'll have a great time. Anyway, that's enough from me. If you've enjoyed the video, hit like. If you want to see more of the same, press subscribe, and I will of course see you again soon.